will open it up to our this month's guest, children's book writer, illustrator, and cartoonist, Nina Laden.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'm so happy you guys are here on this gorgeous, gorgeous evening.
Mhm.
And I prepared a PowerPoint presentation that I want you to know, this is casual. If you want to ask questions or whatever, please do. Pretend that we're all hanging out here in my studio on Lummi Island. That's where I am. And I'm going to share my screen here. And I don't know if you get to see me speaking when that happens. Do you guys know if that works that way?
It's generally
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Are we?
on the side.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that looks
Okay, so
perfect.
I'm still there. Okay.
Perfect.
So I don't know if you can move that little thing out of the way if it's blocking you, or just relocate it. So I know most of you, or some of you know, that I've been doing children's books for it's 30 years that I've been published now. And since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a children's book author and illustrator. And this is so funny. How can I advance my slides, you guys? It's not responding to the proper. Oh,
There
you
you
don't.
go.
I figured it out. Okay. So when I was a little girl, I used to fold paper and I would make books. I mean, that was one of the things I started
Mhm.
doing, as well as comics. So I decided to just show you 30 years of what I've been doing and all the
Mm.
books on the floor in my studio. And so these are the picture books that I wrote and illustrated, or there are two of them there that I didn't write, I illustrated. So The Night I Followed the Dog was my very, very first published book. Wasn't the first book I ever wrote, but it was the first one that got published. Chronicle Books in San Francisco became my main publisher um, through a wild set of circumstances where my best friend, who was on her second honeymoon on a ferry in the middle of Lake Como, Italy, met a children's book literary agent. And it just turned out that she was the one who got my book to Chronicle Books, and she became my agent for my first four books. And
Wow.
these are sitting, I don't know why, but I always do things like opposite the way I swim upstream like a salmon. So The Night I Followed the Dog was my first book. Private Iguana was my second. My Family Tree was my third. When Picasso Met Matisse was my fourth. And then The Blues of Flats Brown, I illustrated for Walter Dean Myers, who was a legend, a very famous poet, was a Black Panther, actually.
Mm.
And they picked me to illustrate his book because the editor found out that, of course, she knew I could draw dogs, but she found out that I've played guitar since I was 8 years old, and I also play blues guitar. So this was a real fun project for me. And then I did a book called Bad Dog, Roberto the Insect Architect, Clowns on Vacation, which I thought was going to succeed, but then I found out that nobody likes clowns.
Oh,
And there's a clown thing. I would go to elementary schools and I would ask how many kids liked clowns, and not many of them would raise their hand. And then I illustrated a book called An Ant's Day Off for Simon and Schuster. Bonnie Becker is an author in Seattle, and we didn't realize we both were in the same city, so we became friends. And then I did Romeo and Juliet. Um, these are something that happened that I never expected to happen. I started to do baby books because my friends were having babies, and I wanted something to give them that was not A is for apple and B is for ball. Little did I know that this was going to turn into a cash cow. My first baby book, Peekahoo, of course, bottom left corner. I don't know why I set this up again. Peekahoo has now sold well over 1 million copies.
oh.
And it seems to be selling more and more every year. And I never anticipated that anything like this would happen. I didn't intend to do baby books or board books or novelty books, but I also have a background in graphic design, and this became something that I definitely could do. Peekahoo, one of the things that really made it succeed was I wanted the book to end on a mirror. So I glued a piece of aluminum foil into the dummy, which is what you call a mock-up of a book in publishing. You call it a dummy. And I sent it and I said, this is where a mirror would go. And so that little thing, which turned out to be Mylar, is what we used. We glued in Mylar. is the most popular thing because not only can parents use it to check on their child in the back seat of the car, little kids kiss themselves when they see themselves in the mirror. It just became this really great, Pika you is what it was when you looked at it. And I never wanted to do a series of books, but my editor kept pushing me, and it took me 12 years. But 12 years later, I did Pika Zoo, and then Pika Boo, and Pika Choo Choo, and Pika Moo. And I had fun. I really enjoyed doing Daddy Wrong Legs, and I had one I was going to do called Mommy Mashups, but that one didn't succeed as well. And then I came up with Trainbow, which I really thought was going to take off because it teaches all the different colors of the rainbow. And then it's an accordion fold book. I had to paint it. It was 4 feet long, both sides. And I have a feeling that the people who don't like rainbow things, that's why it hasn't done as well. And I did a cloth book. Yeah. And then all kinds of life sort of things started happening. In 2012, when Once Upon a Memory came out, my husband almost died from botched open heart surgery and then had thoracic surgery. And then I wound up caring for my father and my brother who had a massive heart attack. And then my husband had a heart attack the same night that my brother had open heart surgery. So I wound up in a strange place where I couldn't illustrate my own books. Not that I didn't want to, I did, but with Once Upon a Memory, which was a poem that I wrote, I had less and less time for me to sit down and really work. And I'd always written songs and very sort of lyrical poems like lullabies. And my editors felt that my style didn't work with it. And I was told, would it be okay if we collaborated, but you can pick the illustrator? So I started on this journey of doing books where I worked with and chose illustrators like Renata Luska, who illustrated Once Upon a Memory. And we became really close friends. She's come and stayed with me a couple times. Are We There Yet is a weird story. That one I planned on illustrating because that was a conceptual book, but my editor at Chronicle Books was upset with me for going elsewhere when I did Once Upon a Memory. And so she pulled it away from me illustrating and let Adam McCauley do it digitally. And I feel like that one wasn't as successful, but he used my sketches to illustrate it. And then If I Had a Little Dream was done with British illustrator Melissa Castrillon, and it was so successful. It was a poem I wrote while making blackberry jam. I was stirring it and I started writing it. I thought it was a song. And then my husband said, no, that's a book. And so If I Had a Little Dream launched the career of Melissa Castrillon. It was her first book she illustrated. And we went on to do Yellow Kayak, Dear Little One, and my new book, Love is My Favorite Color, which came out in January. She just had her first child. Iggy is the name of her daughter. And she's a rock star now. And then I also did You Are a Beautiful Beginning, same editor as Once Upon a Memory, and Seeds of Change, which is also the same editor as You Are a Beautiful Beginning and Once Upon a Memory. But this was not a direction I planned on going in with having other people illustrate for me, but it's freed me up to work on other things. So also, I had no idea that my books were going to go all around the world. And this is just one example. These are all of the foreign editions of Yellow Kayak. And this includes the French. I love that they changed the color of the cover, and the title of the cover in French is originally what my title was, which was Sea Story. So Ballade en Mer is Sea Story in French, and my editor changed the title of the book to Yellow Kayak. So these are just some of the issues you see in publishing. But now I wanted to go back because really my first love was comics from when I was really a young girl. This is a comic I did when I was 7 years old. And I don't know if you can read my my misspelled words, but it says, no one told me to drink Alka-Seltzer, so I did, and I don't have indigestion. No one told me to paint the baby, so I did. No one told me to jump in the trash, so I did. No one told me to mow the cat, so I did. I was a very, very weird child. These are comics I did when I was age 8. And they go in a really weird order. I was a lefty and they made me be a righty. So I think this is why a lot of my stuff goes like counterclockwise. or count, or it doesn't go the normal way you would read it. So who likes girls? We do. Let's dump him if he doesn't like girls. Wait, I like girls. And then this chicken that lays an egg and it lays a dozen of them. So I mean, again, I don't know where these ideas came from, but my early influences, I wore out 75 years of the comics, which I still have. These are books I still own. Absolutely loved that book. And I would pore over all of the different comics artists in there. I mean, Winsor McKay and on and on. I also loved Chester Gould, and I had a Dick Tracy comic book, and I loved Peanuts. I had the Peanuts Treasury, but I also really loved George Harriman and Crazy Cat. And there was something about his use of black in his art, his surreal landscapes, the way his pen and ink lines were just, I mean, they were just lovely. I loved his cross-hatching. Um, and Also, then as I got a little older, I really wore out the fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. This was absolutely, I think I poured over that book in in my tween years. I was just blown away. I don't think I understood most of what was happening, but I really loved the way that Gilbert Shelton drew. And I loved Fat Freddy's cat. Fat Freddy's cat, which you can't say it 3 times fast, is the best.
Mhm.
He poops in Freddy's hat and he poops in his boots. Also, of course, I was a huge R. Crumb fan, and I still own this arcade, which has a lot of other amazing comic artists in there. And my parents were both fine artists. My mom was a painter and she taught art, and my father was a sculptor and collage artist, which he couldn't make a living at. So my father did graphic design a long time ago, and then he became a special effects makeup artist in the movie business. He was twice Oscar nominated, and he ran off with my brother's first grade teacher when I was 11 and my brother was 9. But Saul Steinberg, his drawings and the simplicity of his lines really inspired me. Also, the way that he used pen and ink. I finally got a tattoo, and the first tattoo that I don't have, I have 3, but the first one I got is this Saul Steinberg drawing from the book The Passport right here. These are comics I did when I was 14 years old, and I was a counselor in training in camp. The Leftover Comics and the Counselor in Training Chronicles. And again, I really was into things that were sequential. Back then, I was using rapidographs when I did all my drawings. I think 00 was my favorite point size. And then I went away to art school. And my mom wanted me to be a fine artist. I wanted to get away from my parents. And my mom went to art school in New York City. So did my father. My father went to Cooper Union. My mother went to a bunch of schools, the New School, NYU, Art Students League. And I applied to Syracuse University's College of Visual and Performing Arts because it was in a university, but it also had a great reputation for illustration. And I had a style when I came into art school. I was working doing comics and comic things, and they did everything they could to break me of that. They did not like it, did not want it. This was a self-portrait I did freshman year in general drawing. And I was kind of like frustrated with the way that you had to do everything in art school. And I had to go back to, everything was basics. We had to do the traditional figure drawing, line drawings, and I had to, at the end of my freshman year, apply to get into the major, which was illustration. There were only 30 of us in it that were accepted. And then, traditionally, this was done my senior year. We were painting for models. These were 3-hour paintings. And I proved that I could do what they said I was supposed to do. But then after that, it was trying to get back to who I was. And who I was somebody who loved drawing comics. So to help support myself, I had to work my way through school. I was a waitress for 3 years of college, except freshman year, I didn't work. And I also started doing illustration. And I discovered that I could get free food by illustrating for my favorite restaurant in downtown Syracuse called Possibilities that had just opened. They are still open, and they still, one of the owners passed away. I was really sad to hear that. But I got free food for doing their ads. and I get to work in a style that I loved in pen and ink. And I could be playful with it and use my imagination and just, have a great time. And then my senior year, we had to do a senior project in illustration. And I had been a waitress that summer of end of junior year in Martha's Vineyard. And I met an artist friend who lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and knew a man who needed a book illustrated. And I, at age 18, no, that's wait, last senior year, how old was I? No, I was probably 20 by then because I went to college a year early. Um, Illustrated a book called 100 Reasons Why a Cucumber is Better Than a Man. So I did 101 illustrations, and these are Xerox copies. I don't have the originals anymore. And they got credit for my senior project. And to have to come up with a character of a cucumber, and I didn't write this, somebody in Michigan did. Um, and I got paid. So this was my first like real paying job. The other was food, but I got paid to illustrate this book. And then I never saw it. There were some pretty wild, ridiculous ones, but those are a few of them. Then I graduated from Syracuse and I moved out of New York to Atlanta, where I had an old boyfriend who was going to chiropractic school. And I worked briefly as a graphic designer, but I couldn't handle having to wear pantyhose and dress up. And I started freelancing, doing illustration, and I worked for anybody and everybody who would hire me. This was something done for a magazine. I did magazine work. I did corporate work for Coca-Cola. I did work for, uh, advertising agencies. I even drew magic marker drawings for them, anything I could to make a living, and not have to go back to, working a 9-to-5 job. But I also had to drum up business. And one of the things I was really grateful for was when I was in art school, we had a course in being freelance that was taught by an illustrator's representative, Miranda Hine. I'm still friends with her on Facebook now. And Miranda was, I think, the best teacher we could have possibly had to teach us how to promote ourselves. And, we had to actually market and how we had to account for what we were doing. And we had to pay estimated taxes. So I started doing something. I started sending out faxes once a week. And I, had paid $1,200 for a fax machine, which was the most ridiculous amount, but that's what they were back then. I think you can get a fax machine costs you 120, $150 now. So I started sending these out, and I would get lots of great work. I mean, in fact, like lots of line work, illustrating for like Business Atlanta magazine, and I would do work for other corporations. Um, and these helped me. They really helped me in the beginning. And I think that's all that I have for now. But the other thing that I've been doing all along is journaling. I started keeping journals when I was in high school. And my very first journal was given to me by another artist friend, and it was a Chinese accordion fold journal. And Carol Sun was her name. And she said to me, the reason I gave you this journal is because you can't tear the pages out, because if you do, you break the journal. And this was my first lesson in saving everything you do, because you never know when you're going to get a good idea. And I put everything in my journals. I write ideas down. I draw little comic things. I mean, sketches and doodles. I write the beginning of all my books. They begin in my journals, and then I eventually, type them into Word documents. I cut things out and paste them in there. If I, concert tickets sometimes, or a fortune cookie fortune, or anything that might just spark ideas. I've taped feathers into my journals. And if something doesn't quite fit, I fold it until it does. So this has been, I think, my encyclopedia of ideas, and it's really helped me throughout my whole life and my career, because I process things and I also just write. I do process what I'm going through. But here are some of the funny little things, tidbits that I've taken out of my journals over the years. I used to dream about submitting to the New Yorker, but the truth is it just scared me. I don't know if I was afraid of just being rejected outright or what, but I've always just enjoyed doing things like this. And let's see, there's more of these. There's the Slip Me a Mickey one. Are you sure this is my son? Someone might have slipped me a Mickey. And back when Viagra first came out, I mean, if I had only submitted it when, and then that was a real rough sketch. Maybe they would have taken it. I don't know. These are just odd things, except for the sorry, but you're on the no-fly list. That was me. I was put on the no-fly list right after September 11th. For 5 years, it seemed I had to get police clearance every time I flew because of my last name.
Oh,
My last name was, what was that?
I got it.
My,
I'm sorry. Go on.
yeah, my last name was Polish. My great-grandfather changed it from Ladinsky. And so I am not not any relation to Osama, and we say Laden actually. But my middle name is Beth. So I have the middle initial B. And they were brutal. Here I am. I'm a children's book author and illustrator, and I was traveling with books, going to speak in schools. And they would question me as if like I had fake ID or something. Do you know what your birthday is? Of course I know what my birthday is. But it became, I had to threaten to go to the ACLU because it was getting to be horrible. One time they put my luggage tag on my husband's bag, and they searched his bag, not mine. So I used to joke about wanting to put Archie McPhee toys in my bag just to throw them off. But anyway, yeah, so that was supposedly, the no-fly list was not so funny, but I thought it was kind of funny. Here's some other ones about the marine layer when you get socked in. The crowd went wild. This was a fairly recent one, not that long ago, but I mean, extroverts unite and introverts untie. I drew that on an airplane in my journal. And then cat point of view, which is first person and second person and third person. Um, and then I started getting interested in really wanting to do graphic novel. And it kind of scared me, but I was asked by writer friends. I don't know if any of you know who Meryl Marco is. Meryl Marco used to, well, she was David Letterman's long-term significant other. And she invented the late night format, and she invented stupid pet tricks. And Meryl is an Emmy-winning comedian writer. She has many books. One of her books I love is called Lying in Circles. It's Walking in Circles Before Lying Down. And she did a wonderful graphic novel called We Saw Scenery. Well, Meryl told me that this book was being put together, Sister Writer Eaters, and she knew I loved food and I should contribute to it. So I wrote a graphic essay called The Pesto Chronicles, and I had to figure out how I was going to draw it. And I went back more or less to my childhood using dip pen and ink. And I had 8 pages to tell this whole story about how, you know, pesto has this enormous role in my life. And I had to also in this include the recipe, which I did do at the end. But this was sort of the beginning of me trying to work towards something that really I felt that I needed to start doing and everyone else was doing, and it kind of scared me. And then the Me Too movement came out, and I am really honored that Diane Newman actually reached out to me and asked me to contribute to Drawing Power. And it's really sad that both Diane and also R. Crumb's wife, Aileen, both of them passed away not too long ago. But I did get to work one-on-one with Diane, and all I had was 3 pages to tell a story of being raped when I was 15 by my father's wife's brother, my so-called uncle, I guess, my step uncle. And so this was a tough one. It was hard for me to do this, but I did 3 pages, and I know the book went on to win an Eisner Award, but I still haven't been happy working in this sort of older style. And one of the things that I have been doing is I started joining different groups. Like first it was Dune in Seattle. And it was then the Sequential Artist Workshop, which if you're not involved with them, I highly recommend that you do join them. Sequential Artist Workshop, they have courses, which I did do, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But also they have Friday Night Comics, which is a free, wonderful thing. Every Friday night, a different comics artist leads it, and you do different workshops, and you just play, and we're all on Zoom together. They also have something called Promptapalooza, where you just throw out prompts and you have 4 minutes to draw them, and you can't use pencil, you just draw. And that's every other Wednesday. No, wait a minute. Is it? Yeah, it's every 2 weeks on Wednesdays. And so all these things I started getting involved with. And this is a comics journal I started when I started doing all of these things. And there are different prompts. Some of them were just do a 4-panel about this, and others were me trying to figure out how I wanted to start working on graphic memoir, which is something that I've been wanting to do. And going through all these different ideas about how I was going to do it, and playing really. And for some reason I love graph paper because it's easy to draw panels when you're on graph paper. And you can buy these composition notebooks for 99 cents if you're lucky at Fred Meyer. They put them on sale before school starts. So I started grabbing a stack of them. And I just really felt like I needed to go back to the days of exploring and playing. And this has been very helpful. This was making fun of a joke. So I used, what's her name? Uma Thurman. And then trying to figure out how to outline graphic novel and do it only in a few panels. This is, I'll show that later. That is my entire graphic novel idea in 8 pages, which was not easy to do. And then there's some other little things that go through here. This was a workshop led by the women who did Monsters Are My Favorite Thing. Mapping your neighborhood where you grew up, and just getting as many ideas down as you can, doing 4 panels. And then some other ones that I did on my own, which I'll go into a little bit. And then I did hourly comics for the first time this year, which was another really cool thing where you draw every hour. So now a little bit about what I'm trying to do, which I hope someday I'm going to pull this off. Both of my parents were fine artists, and both of my parents were bipolar. And I had a very bizarre childhood. And I've been trying to figure out how I want to tell that story. And so through the Sequential Artist Workshop, I did take this graphic memoir course, which was really wonderful. It was over a 6-month period. And we met once a week. And this was kind of, I had to make these taller to get into the anthology at the end of the year, but this was me figuring out what the parameters of my entire memoir was in 8 pages and telling the story to myself. I also have a train running along the bottom of the panels, which was the actual, I decided there was a real train in this, and the Bipolar Express are all of my dead relatives talking to me as this is happening. And it seemed like it was incredibly ambitious, and I wasn't sure that I could pull this off. And I've gone back and forth over how to tell it. I've written poetry about it, tried to simplify, and figure out if there's a way that I can tell this that will work for me. Because when you get into graphic novel, you're talking about drawing sometimes 400 pages. Then things started going bad for me. It was, I can't remember, it was before the pandemic. I decided to get a tattoo on my ankle of my peekahoo owl that has sold over 1 million copies. And no one told me that colors like red and orange in a tattoo, you can be allergic to the ink. And yep, I was allergic to the ink. So I went through this crazy period of having to figure out what was wrong. And I realized that I just needed to stick to black ink, and paper was probably a better idea anyway. But then right before the pandemic, or as it was beginning, I had been taking a antidepressant for, it's now 27 years, and it went into global shortage because of the pandemic. And I wound up, I did a 22-page graphic essay on what happened, which I still haven't moved forward with that. But it was a really hard time for me, and I went back into depression until they finally got the pill back on the market. And then the pandemic hit. And I created an amabi, which is a Japanese mythical creature that protects you from epidemics. And for all the days of the pandemic, even now, I still have it sitting on my dining room table to protect me. I did wind up getting COVID once. But I was really trying to navigate my way through the pandemic. And so I decided to do a comic with a poem every single day for an entire year. And I called it Corona Life. And so I have in my journal, a whole bunch of them got into a publication in New York that the School of Visual Arts put together. So they shrank them down. But these are just a couple, I mean, examples of what I was doing to get myself through the pandemic. And the world had just really gotten horrible, and Dune became remote. This was something I did for Remote Dune. And then so then at the end of 2022, the beginning of 2023, I found out that I had cancer. And at Promptapalooza, we had to draw part of your body is calling to tell you something. And I have my rectal cancer. And so that was my Promptapalooza card. And then at Friday Night Comics, I also did a comic about my tumor and decided that I wanted to somehow personify it. And I had a neighbor tell me that sometimes cancer is the cure. She had had cancer twice. I didn't really know what she meant, but I was going through chemo and radiation. I had 2 surgeries. When I was in the hospital after my first surgery, I entertained all of the nurses by drawing on the whiteboard in my room. I had to have an ileostomy, which I don't recommend, but it helped save me and cure me. And then on the very last bag, I drew this for my surgeon for my second surgery to discover when they went to perform surgery on me, and they all took photos. And I got through that. But it really was hard on me. I didn't feel like drawing. I didn't feel like writing. I play guitar and ukulele. I make jewelry, and I wasn't doing any of this. All I felt like, and this has been the whole past year, was breathing, eating, walking, talking, sleeping, loving, caring, feeling, sensing, hearing, listening, and living. And I drew that in May, and I have to say I've come a long way since then. I have been in remission now pretty much since October is when I think they officially told me. And I did a Friday Night Comics where we created witch Sonas, and my witch Sona is cancer fighting. She has the ability to heal and destroy tumors, and she has a scar eraser. I now have 8 scars on my stomach. She can avoid toxic people. I've actually learned a lot since I've been through this process. So I'm coming into a new, I hope, renaissance phase where I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to go next. I'm still writing picture books. I wrote one a couple weeks ago that I want to start sketching for, but I'm trying to find my way forward because I want to do graphic novel. But art supplies have always been the thing that I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm sure most of you are, but it's like I can't decide which way to go. Magic markers were my thing when I was a kid. Absolutely. I got high on them and loved the smell. I loved drawing. I loved that you could hold them up to the light and like turn your work into a stained glass. I have all kinds of tools that I play with though. Pens. I can never find like the one pen I love the most, although it used to be that the Pentel art brush, with the cartridges, if you put in a carbon ink cartridge, really was my favorite. But old-fashioned dip pen and ink is still a favorite of mine. And some of the micron pens, I like the brush tip one, and I like the 05 and the 08. I also modified you know how they make little eyebrow things for women to draw on their eyebrows? Well, I pulled out the thing for making the eyebrows. I was taught this by Heinrich Drescher, and I put it into a permanent black marker. And so now I can do instant cross hatching. It's really fun. And so I'm always looking for tools. I've even been doing art with a fork and a feather. So this is a partial drawing with a Pentel brush pen with fork and ink. This is completely done with fork and ink. Just wanting to like lighten things up. Everyone talked about in the sequential artist workshop, this Kakamori nib. It's this crazy nib that draws ink on like 6 different sides. You can make really wide marks with it. You can make really fine marks with it. So I wanted to play with that. And I also started playing with vintage rubber stamps and ink. And this is something else that I really enjoy doing because you can see outside of what those stamps are. And you can just make crazy stuff. And I loved playing with them. Also playing with rubber stamp letters too. And, you know, like ransom note looking things. But I did a whole bunch of these. I wound up having a show in Seattle and selling the originals. I still have some for sale. I have an online shop I created to help my medical bills. So they're out there on my shop. But the thing I started playing with was Procreate. And the jury is still out for me on it. I don't know how many of you like it or don't like it, but I have the same problem in Procreate that I have with regular materials, is that there are so many brushes. So as a thing to kind of wrap this up, just to amuse you all, I hope, I decided to try every single brush in Procreate and make it into a quick character drawing, including, these are brushes I purchased. So I love the Rusty Nib collection, which I got, I can't remember the company, what it's called right now, but anyway. So I just sat here at my drawing table and I took each brush and made it into like a little character so I could see what the brush's attributes were. And some of them, of course, are meant for engraving. They're all pretty funny. And some of them work better than others. But I did all of these, I think there's 15 pages of them. And I think I put some of them on my website. I'm not sure right now, but this was a great experiment. And some of them draw in little blots, and I can't even tell what those are called. And the simpler ones, you know, read better. But I still love a lot of them. I love Tinderbox. I don't know why. I like the pens that are not all one thickness. Um, you know, so these were a total experiment, but finding my way forward. And sometimes that's what you have to do. And most of the time, I feel like I can never catch up with myself. And I'm always feeling like I'm behind. And I drew this before I knew I had rectal cancer. But that's kind of how I feel some days. Um, and then other days I feel like this, that I left my head somewhere on a beach. Um, but there is so much out there. There's so much abundance if you just look. And I'm hoping that my way forward is going to involve sequential art and comics, as well as books, and that I will be able to tell some of my stories, and I hope people will want to read them. Thank you guys so much for letting me speak. I have a website. I have a shop now. If you're not my friend on Facebook, please send me a friend request. I have a Publix page, but it's not as much fun as my regular one. And I'm on Instagram as well. And I'd love to see you over there where it's Facebook's more friendly, I think, for talking and stuff, but Instagram is pictures. So anyway, if anyone has any questions, anything, please gonna figure out how do we get out of stop share. We got to hit this button right there.
Ta-da.
Uh,
Can I first of all say that was one fabulous and well-run talk. Thank you.
thank you. Oh, thank you so much. And I'm trying to figure out how to get my screen off of my screen. How do we,
You're all-
up there it goes. Okay, good. I can see you now. So yeah, I hope this was good. I'm sorry I didn't focus on my books. I wanted to focus on comics, so I hope that's all right.
worries.
Excellent. Excellent.
So if anyone has any questions or suggestions or tell me, I mean, don't like Procreate or do like Procreate or
I found it rather funny because I do professionally these days, I do 50% of my work on Procreate, and everybody has that issue with too many brushes. As a matter of fact,
so
there's a critique group I attend, and every time there's somebody who's did a piece on Procreate, one of the first things is, we can tell you use way too many brushes there.
do you have favorite brushes?
Since I'm mostly pen and ink, I generally just use I just use the chalk marker for sketching, because I can shrink it down more than the standard pencil brushes, and then I pretty much use the Procreate ink brush for my inking, and so based on, occasionally I'll use a few others for shading, but pretty much I keep it simple.
Yeah, that's
There's
that question.
a group of my friends and I all picked up the tablet and Procreate pretty much at the same time, and we started a little Facebook group called Procreate Party, where we share tips and techniques with each other. I'll see if I can find a link and put that into the
Well,
chat.
Nice.
I have to I don't know if Max will ever teach, but Max, who owns Push Pull, I have a loose leaf binder here. I took 2 of her Procreate courses, and they're phenomenal. I mean, and really, really learned so much. And honestly, I think that it's a great thing if she does it. In fact, I encourage her to do it again. Sequential Artist Workshop also offers, if you become, I think you can be a free person involved, but at the lowest level, it's cheap. They have Procreate Basics with Donna Drew. I can't pronounce her last name, Drukas. And every week she puts up new videos that are available, like on YouTube. So I would love for you to put your info in the chat if you can, Mark, the name of the group. Can you add it to the chat?
Yeah, you may have to reach out and contact me once you're in, because we really heavily screen everybody going in. We just don't let everybody in.
Oh, okay,
the same
okay. And there was a
but,
question from Jennifer about the eyebrow thing. So this is really cool. Do you know, if you go to like any of the well, I ordered it online, like on Amazon, because I live on an island. It's an eyebrow. It draws eyebrows for you, and it usually comes in brown, unfortunately, or the colors are not right. So it's an eyebrow marker, and you can take tweezers and pull out the little prong thing that's in there, and then you just buy like a Pentel permanent, one of the carbon drawing pens, pull out its tip, and you replace it with the one that draws eyebrows, and then you have this automatic crosshatch tool. So you're just basically transplanting the felt tip from the eyebrow tool into a Pentel permanent marker. And the other thing was, I don't know what the Munster is. The nibs, like the different nibs, the Kakamori is the wild one. And then drawing with a fork in ink is hilarious. And I've also used a feather and used it as a paintbrush. Plus you can also use the other end of the feather to make oh wait, I have one right here. These are really great. I find these on the beach. So just, if you take a X-Acto knife and you make a point on there, and then you put a little line down the middle, you can make any feather into a dip pen and ink. So yeah, and these are great. I love to do these when I have like kids that want to draw or play. So I recommend doing that. Found objects really make great art supplies. Anybody else, any questions or comments? Or if you come to Lummi Island, I'm always happy to show you my studio.
Oh, I should mention, of course, that being down here in Clallam Bay, there's Macaw Days every year. And
Oh,
you
wow.
probably have a lot of friends from Lummi Island who come and attend. And well, I'll tell you what, I got a guest room.
Ah, okay, cool.
You ever want to stop in and go to Macaw Days together? I'm
Yeah.
perfectly happy.
I want to go to the Macaw reservation and get some of those potatoes, the Ozette potatoes they grow, because I used to grow.
I've got them.
You do? Oh my God.
I've got them and I grow them, and I am the champion Ozette potato grower because I found out that they're greedy. They will take all the water and all the food you give them, and I have grown them a foot long.
Wow. Well, if you ever have any babies that you want to like sell as seed potato,
No, I got loads of them, and the food bank every 2 weeks has buckets of them.
You're kidding. All right,
I'm not kidding. We got Osettes out the kazoo
I
up
couldn't
here.
find any online to order seed potatoes. I grow potatoes, but not them. In Ballard. Okay, you guys, I grew Ozette potatoes in Ballard. The very first year the Macaws released the potatoes, I got some, and my realtor, when I sold my house in Seattle, they got rid of all of the food I grew because they thought it wouldn't show. They dug up. This is horrible. They dug up my Ozette patch, which reseeded itself every year, and they replaced it with sod. And they pulled out all of my culinary except my bay laurel tree. They kept the bay leaves and they kept my blueberries. They pulled everything up, and I sold the house to a chef and a lawyer.
Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to ship potatoes.
Of course you are.
Well, maybe I am.
No, I just got potatoes in the mail from Irish Eyes, but not
okay. Now, Lummi Island, correct me here, US or Canada? What is it?
US.
It's
yeah,
US.
No, we're
fine. Well, I tell you what, then, if you
in
use
Bellingham.
my email, right? Just email me your address, and I will, the next time I'm at the food bank, pick you up a bunch of these. And
I will trade.
Send you a box.
All right, I'll send you something back.
Ooh.
I'll trade you for something. We'll come up.
Okay, so yeah, go ahead. Just email me your address, and I will ship you the next time the food bank comes along. I'll dig up a bunch of Ozette potatoes and send them to you.
Okay, great. So anyone else?
We do everything on Cartoonists Northwest.
You can, and I believe in the barter system. So expect some Lummi goodies. So anybody else, anything? I really, I'm open about whatever it is that I'm doing. I really feel like I'm in beginner mind for most of the time, and I think that's something that has helped me, because I get bored if I do the same thing over and over again. And I feel fortunate that I have enough books that are still in print and selling that it gives me this flexibility to be able to experiment.
I've been following you for a long time on Facebook, and I just love all of your posts, and I'm always drooling with the food, and I've always saying, God, if it's the end of the world, I have like 10 people that
Come on.
I want to be with Nina, because you know how to forage stuff, you get your own fish. I mean, I'm like, I'm going to be on Nina's team.
Yeah, we tell all of our friends, because I mean, you could probably live out of my pantry here on the island from all of the canning and stuff that I do and drying. I could probably spend a year just living out of the pantry in my garage. And it is an abundant place. Right now the nettles are up, and I'm eating foraging nettles. They're beautiful right now, and I'm waiting. It's still too early for mushrooms, but we'll start seeing oyster mushrooms probably in the next 4 weeks or so. Morels will come up a little bit around that time too, but I have to go over into the Cascades to get those if I'm really serious. But food's always been this great thing for me, and I went through a whole year where I could eat almost nothing because of my cancer. So there are a lot of interesting lessons in life. And I think coming through it, it's given me a lot more appreciation for what I do have, and that the things that I can do. I'm sad I can never drink alcohol again. Not that I was a big drinker, but I enjoyed it with the meal. but because of my being put back together in 2 different places, it's a laxative now, so I can't drink it. But there's great things. Other things are good, and I'm maybe at some point. Lots of people keep telling me to do a cancer graphic memoir, but there's a lot of them out there, so we'll see. It's like, what stories the most important ones? Which are the ones that I think really need to be told? And that's the hard part. But I have to say, though, the comics community is so great in the Seattle area. I saw that Short Run is going to be back again at the same Fisher Pavilion. They got that location. I think they didn't think they would, but they are going to get it. But I also encourage anyone who doesn't know Sequential Artist Workshop, SAW for short. They are based in Florida, of all places. But Tom Hart, H-A-R-T, who's done graphic novels. He's won awards for his graphic novel about his daughter, who died of sudden infant death syndrome when she was like a couple years old. It's a beautiful, moving graphic novel. He is a very generous, caring person, and he runs this whole SAW thing. And they have great teachers and a great community. And they have been really supportive. So I encourage everyone to check them out, especially Free Friday Comics. They are wonderful. Every week it's something different. So, anyway, I really hope that you guys will reach out to me also on social media, ask questions. I did throw my email in the chat so that Mark will make sure that, or no, Bill, someone will make sure I'm on the list for your drink, and I'll be drinking coconut water or tea, but for your drink and draw.
Oh, the beauty of it being online is you can be drinking anything, and we won't know one way or the other. You could tell.
Well, it is drinking, and drinking can be anything that's liquid.
Yeah,
Right.
but
Yeah.
the beauty of having it on Zoom is you could be drinking ginger ale and telling us it's the finest champagne.
Oh, right. Right. Yeah, like here, this is a mug of mezcal.
Ooh.
No, it's not. It smells like gasoline. No, I'm trying really hard. I was a super healthy person before cancer, and I'm trying to still be a super healthy person after it. All I will tell you is, please get colonoscopies, please. I was afraid of it, and now it saved my life. So do that. Don't put it off. But yeah, anyway, again, anything else, come on up, visit me.
And I,
And I'll be
sorry,
down. Go ahead. Did someone?
oh, Nina, this is Wend. Before you got off, I wanted to thank you for your contribution to Drawing Power. That book is the only way that I knew of you, and it's incredibly important to me, and I just want to thank you for the story you shared there.
You're so welcome. Yeah, that was a hard thing to do. There's a part of me that I look at it and I go, oh, I wish I drew it with a different tool and a different style. But I had to go back to, I fell back on what I did when I was a teenager, and that's when it happened to me. So it put me back into that place. And Diane did such an incredible job of putting that book together, and she cared about all of us. And I hope that the book gets shared and lives on. And I will, if I ever get to do this Bipolar Express memoir, I will tell much more of that story. And I think we all need to speak our truth.
Oh, definitely. And considering I know it's sort of like how easy it is, it's hard enough when triggers sneak up on you, but to sort of face them and jump on the trigger in order to tell those stories, it's a painful challenge, and I applaud you for being able to do it. Yeah.
No, it was, it took me so long to even be able to use the word, which what I said was true. I avoided it for so long.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, this is something that we all need to believe. We need to believe victims.
Oh, definitely. And it's so easy to gaslight oneself to get through the day. So, So
Yeah.
that's more power to you.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, all right. Anyone else? I don't know. Do we have to, you said this goes for 2 hours, does it? Or
That's
I was
The
like,
speakers meeting normally goes for an hour, and I'll tell you why. Because it is a Saturday, and
Right.
being a speaker is hard work, and so we schedule it for an hour. And of course, nobody would be throwing you off if you wanted to stay longer. I'm just saying that it is normally scheduled for an hour simply because it's strenuous, and other people, people have other evening things they have to do too. So it's kind of up to you.
I have to, I really appreciate being here, but I have to say, I have to go to the bathroom.
perfect.
We're human.
One of the unfortunate sort of side effects of what I have is that it can happen anytime, and I don't have the warning I used to. So it's different for me, but I've been very lucky and grateful that I'm healing better than average. So I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for inviting me. And please let me know when you have your drink and draw things, and I will come and participate.
Okay, well,
Okay.
look
And
forward
I will potato you.
Okay, yes, potato me. And I'm gonna send you jars back in the mail of stuff.
Mm.
I'm gonna jar you. Okay.
Mm.
Thank you for
Thank
all of
you.
this.
Bye.
Okay,
you.
bye.
Well, everybody,
Bye.
thank you so
Thank
much for a
you.
fantastic evening, and hope to see you at the same time next month.